Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. It's time again to be talking about Magic the Gathering. And that means that I have a co-host. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Gino. How's it going?
Good. Today we're going to be talking about Core Set 2019, the new banned and restricted updates, and some other general stuff. So how's it been going? How has your Magic career been going? Progressing?
It's been going along. It's, as most grinders would know, it's a slow and steady pace, but things are chugging along. I just came back from GP Vegas and the Team RPTQ. Those are both a lot of fun. I was lucky enough to day 2 GP Vegas, where in the last round, I don't know if you can see me, but they had me. It was round 8, I believe. Yeah, definitely round 8. They had me on camera playing against Reed Duke, and I was able to kick him out of day 2, which was pretty good feeling. Pretty good. I don't know if I was pretty sure it wasn't the featured match, so I'm not sure if it would be that easy to find. Yeah, no, I was on camera. They had the cameras there. That's for certain. I just because they only do one feature match at a time, so I definitely wasn't the main feature match. I was I think one of their backup matches, which still pretty cool. Can't complain.
Yeah. What was he rocking? Was it?
He was on Marty Pyromancer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, a powerful mid-range deck. And really, if I wasn't as lucky as Hal, he probably should have won, because there was one point in the game where he had a Liliana on 6, and I'm like, all right, desperation, activate Ascanta. I hit a cryptic command, but I couldn't cast it. And then he's like, all right, that makes things interesting. Now, that's literally what he said. He's like, all right, I'll plus Liliana. So I'm like, all right, sure, discard the cryptic command. Then I untap, draw Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and suddenly I win the match. Just like that. Card. It's really good when your opponent's a Liliana on 7 and no cards in hand, especially.
Yeah. Do you have any response? Oh, no response. Okay.
No, okay, yeah, just put that right in there. You can come back in a few turns when I've drawn 7 cards off my Ascanta / Teferi.
Yeah.
So, oh, man. What a
That's great. So you were rocking Jeskai Control?
I was. I've been rocking that deck before. It was cool. As they say, I played it at GB Hartford to the powerful 1-3 record. 1-3 drop, that is. So that was fun. But that was with the crappy Jace the Mind Sculptor. Don't play that card, kids. Don't do it. It's a trap.
This Teferi cat, the new hotness.
Yeah, no, he's the guy. He's the guy. They cast Blood Moon against you before you're like, oh, I guess I lose. Now you're like, all right, Teferi, put it back. Thank you. It's the real deal. Absolutely. Standard and modern, for that matter. Played in both.
That it is. So, the tournament, how did it go after the reduking?
Oh, yeah, not so great. Yeah, I went 0-4. So it was a bunch of what was it called? I played against KCI. That matchup was pretty tough purely because my sideboard wasn't prepared for it, because I saw Matt Nass doing well with it a bunch, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of just Matt Nass's thing. I'm not going to see that a bunch. I was wrong, saw it twice, and then then I saw Autumn Burchett, and I'm like, oh, cool, she writes all about control. Maybe we can have a control mirror. It's nope, she's on Tron. All right, we lose that. That's done. Then I played against Death Shadow, where I drew 16 lands, not counting fetch lands as 2. I had 16 lands in play, and it was pretty fun. Fun.
I was gonna say, because
it's pretty hard to even
definitely the match that you want.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Death Shadow's a great matchup for Jeskai Control, but things can go poorly. You get, for what it's worth, I got pretty lucky to even make day 2, so it's kind of it balances out. And then I played against John, I was about to win the match, but then she went Liliana minus, mill over a Bloodbraid Elf, cast the Bloodbraid Elf, and then hit a choke. And then I was not winning.
Choke.
Choke me out. And then she smashed me game 3 because I mulled to 5. But that's okay. Magic's all about taking the good with the bad, because you will get both.
I didn't know people choked anymore.
I didn't either. I actually got boiled at 3 separate occasions at GP Vegas. I actually won through 2 of them, which was kind of funny, because Glacial Fortress and Sulphur Falls are not islands. So
that's amazing. I didn't know people still boiled. I didn't know that they choked.
Yeah, it was for my day 2 match, or no, not my day 2, the one before my day 2 match. I played against the guy who was playing Red, White, Blood Moon, Chalice of the Void, Choke, and I'm just all right, dude. And literally game 1, he went turn 3 Giddy to the Trials, and the turn 4 Chandra Torch, and the turn 5 Big Giddy, and I'm like, what's happening right now? As I'm countering every single spell he plays, of course, because that's what my deck does.
Just gigantic planeswalkers.
Yeah, not so good against them. Yeah, not so good against Cryptic, though. Not great.
Nope, not amazing.
Then the Team RPTU also went well. We went 4-2 with our team. We played the 3 decks we played were the Teferi deck, the red deck, and then the deck that lost a lot. So that went about as expected.
Which was your deck that lost a lot slot?
It was green-black snakes. Didn't do a whole lot of winning. Every time I looked over, I saw he was like facing down a Scarab God, and I looked over and I had like 4 Vrasa's Contempts in my deck, and I'm like, sorry, dude.
Yeah, I really think in that configuration, green-white mid-range is what I would have been on for the third chair.
We tested that deck, yeah. No, it's good, but we didn't like it.
I wouldn't mind actually rocking green-white tokens when you know that at most you will face 1 red deck.
Yeah, you just lose so hard to the red deck is the problem. But yeah, no, you're right. It's only a third red. It is capped at 1/3.
And sometimes they don't draw the Chain Whirler.
Sometimes they don't. Like, that's like the justification, I think, of playing cards like Glint Sleeve. When your whole deck's built around it, it's like they have to draw Chain Whirler ever, so it's a little more dicey. But yeah, no, it could. Like, I'm not saying we did perfectly. Like, I made a punt against a green-white deck that cost us a match. If I would have won that match, there might have been a planet where we made top 8, and if we did well in top 8, we'd be in the Pro Tour right now. But that's, again, how Magic works. So
yes, that it is. And yeah, but, going 4-1 ain't bad.
Yeah,
especially
4-2. But yeah, we got a box in like $50 or $70, so nothing to sneeze at. But
and especially when you've got one of your legs that just like is very outgunned.
Oh yeah, no, it is. But everyone really does. Like literally in round 5, or it was round 6, the last round, the guy literally played like a Memorial to Unity tapped, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. They must have got it. They must have robbed you dry, man. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, that's the white one, right?
No, he was on. That was the green one. He was on mono green. Like,
oh no.
So I just played a Scarab God, and he just couldn't do anything about it. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, man.
Look down, look up, look down. Question life.
Question life. He actually did beat me one game with a big angry dinosaur, but I still took the match pretty easily.
Sadness on the sack.
Sadness resolves. Oh man.
So, with that out of the way, there was a big thing with Modern recently, or not Modern. There was a big shakeup.
You mean
banned and restricteds?
Yeah.
Well, we thought there might be a shakeup in Modern. We thought there might be a shakeup in Standard, and there definitely was a shakeup in Legacy.
Yeah,
so, why don't we start with the bans that actually happened?
Yeah, so Legacy. My friend, it was funny because we were planning to go to SCG Worcester, and my friend's like, oh, awesome, I just assembled Grixis Delver. This deck's really good. Saw the BNR restrict, and he's just like, well, this sucks. I'm like, oh, man, I feel so bad for the guy. He didn't even get the chance to play his deck, and it already got banned. But yeah, it's for the best, probably. Deathrite Shaman, it's really good.
I would say of the Delver variants, Grixis might still exist. It just won't be as nutso.
Maybe, but the way he explained it to me, because I'm not a Legacy player, but he is, so he explained it to me pretty well. He said Grixis is a deck, it's a very inconsistent mana base, because you're playing a 3-color deck with 4 Wastelands, and you really and a low land count. So you really rely on your Deathrite Shamans to kind of smooth out the curve, make sure things happen in time, make sure you can get your good plays out in time with like Pyromancer. I think they play Thoughtseize, or like Pyromancer with like a 1-mana counter or a Thoughtseize or something like that. The deck is probably dead, but hey, I think it's great for Legacy diversity. Well, it was like the most recent Legacy tournament. It was like 6 or 7 out of the top 8 decks all packed 4 copies of Deathrite. That's just not right. It shouldn't be like that.
And Deathrite Shaman is probably one of the most broken, quote unquote, fair cards that's ever been printed. It just does everything. Like,
oh yeah, easily.
It fixes your mana. It graveyard hates. It kills your opponent. It gains you life. It doesn't die to like a lot of incidental 1 damage removal. It just does everything, and it's in 2 colors. And
it's so powerful. Like you compare it to a card like Birds of Paradise, which is like seen play in Modern from time to time, and you're like, this card is so much better than Birds of Paradise. Like, let's start. You can cast it for black mana, so I don't even need to be playing green, which is kind of like a weird subversion of the color pie when you think about it.
Oh, it totally is. And all those mana bases play fetches, so it's trivial to make it produce mana. And then on top of that, it is Grim Lavamancer and Birds of Paradise, and it can gain you life if you want, all the while hating your opponent's graveyard.
Oh yeah, no, like that's to say, like even this is the last time we went to a team tournament. My friend I was just talking about, he played Dredge, and he just got absolutely throttled because every single one of his opponents main decked 4 Deathrite Shamans, and it was very hard, not impossible, very hard to win through that. So maybe decks like that can exist now. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, we'll see.
Gataxian Probe also banned, also a broken card. It turns out that if you just pay nothing or 2 life to look at your opponent's hand and draw a card, that's devastating. It turns out in every format.
No, it does. I think it's just like it's not only that, but it's also all those like weird interactions where it's like it puts a card in your graveyard, it ups your spell count, it lets you just like do like. Cause I remember with like in the Grixis Delver deck we were just talking about, a really big play they could do is just go like they go turn 3 Young Pyromancer, cast a Gataxian Probe, make a dude, look at your hand, cast a Cabal Therapy, make another dude, take that card that they just looked at, flash back the Cabal Therapy off the stupid elemental they just made, and just rip your hand to pieces on turn 3 while having a giant ass board. Now it's going to be a lot harder, if not impossible, for them to do that.
Now they'll have to play Peak.
Peak. I've played that in a couple decks. I would not recommend.
No, I just love that the difference between a card that is banned in all formats except for Vintage and a card that is unplayable in all formats is 1 blue mana.
Yeah, no, easily. You just like think about cards like where it's like 1 mana versus 2 mana. Most of us would be like a 1 mana mana dork is like good enough for Modern. A 2 mana mana dork doesn't even see play in Standard. But now take that comparison and turn from 1 to 0. Like, it's so much we can't even fathom it. It's infinitely cheaper. It's actually just, it's crazy. No, this card should have been banned. I'm happy. Wizards, I think they knocked it out of the park with the legacy bans. Good. Yep. Well, kudos to them.
And we're relearning the lesson that anything that is free in terms of mana is always broken.
Yep. 2 life, not enough of a cost. Does a lot.
Yep. When decks that do not play blue can do that, you've made a mistake.
Yeah, the one little withholding I have, which is still a great ban, but there is a Legacy Pro Tour coming up, and they're banning cards in Legacy. That's not to say that the ban wasn't a good decision, because it was, but it's just it makes you think a little bit, just a little bit.
Yep. Now at least people have to make decks, and we maybe won't just see Deathrite and Friends mirrors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely for the best. I'm happy.
Plus whatever good stuff you wanted to throw in with it.
Yep, so I'm happy for all my Legacy friends. They can actually enjoy playing non-Deathrite decks now. So maybe yay to the unfair decks in Legacy. Who knows?
Now, for those of us who are playing some of the cheaper formats, not to say cheap, but some
not
cheaper formats, what did you think about Stoneforge Mystic not getting unbanned in Modern?
Honestly. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but honestly, I just the speculators can suck it on this one. Yes, you guys, screw those guys. Honestly, that is just, I am so, not, regardless of the balancing thing, we could talk about that in a second, but, I am so happy all those people who bought out Stoneforge Mystic just got royally screwed on their investment. That just brings me such a high amount of joy, because those are the kind of people who make this game so expensive for the rest of us, because we can't afford to do this. I had to get that one off my chest. But from a balance standpoint, honestly, Stoneforge would probably be fine in Modern, but it's there's no reason to unban it. I think if the Goldfish podcast talked about this for a little bit, usually they shake it up around the time before a Modern Pro Tour is coming up, and there's I guess there's the Team Pro Tour coming up, but that's only a third Modern, so I think they can kind of wait on this one. I will say the next 5 years, if you had to ask me if Stoneforge is going to be unbanned, I say it will be, but I don't know when.
I don't see a good reason to basically bring back a Grizzly Bear that tutors a 5/5 lifelink trample that if your opponent doesn't deal with the Grizzly Bear, they just get rolled.
It's not
a super fun interaction. There's not a deck building cost. The only cost for running Stoneforge Mystic is you have to have an Batter Skull.
Maybe 2 equipments.
Maybe 2? And then maybe you can put a sword in there. But the cost to have this very, very powerful late game, finisher, and it's not even late game. You can do this on turn 3. But this very, very powerful finisher that comes at very little cost. Mm-hmm. Why bring it back?
Yeah, I agree. It's dangerous. I think it just kind of reads out a lot of the 2-drops in Modern, because you just think why am I playing this over Stoneforge Mystic? And a lot of the time, there's just not a reason you should be playing that 2-drop over Stoneforge Mystic. And Modern's so diverse right now, you're right. Maybe it just doesn't need that. The deck's already so good. We don't need to throw even more in.
Yeah, if I was playing Mardu Pyromancer, which I do, why would I play the Pyromancer instead of Stoneforge Mystic?
Yeah, I think that's something I would think about. I don't have enough personal experience with that deck to make a call like that,
Yeah,
but
and
you play it a lot more, so I'd take
it's
your word
not
on that.
it's not like 1-to-1, but it's a thing that then all of a sudden, do I care more about making these elementals and the incremental value there, or do I want to just hammer people? And like that option, I think that it would enable some other decks, but I'm afraid that it's just going to prove to be so much more powerful than these other decks that involve actual synergies,
Mhm.
that I feel like it might homogenize the end games of a lot of different decks.
Yeah, that seems it's a pretty likely scenario. It's just like after they unbanned Jace the Mind Sculptor and like literally nothing happened, I just don't know with Modern anymore because I was so convinced that Jace the Mind Sculptor was going to come in and just make all the control decks like super great and really like Codblade level powerful, and that just didn't happen at all. So I don't know, maybe that's where I'm at with the Stoneforge. Feels
Yeah,
pretty similar.
makes sense. So standard also
Mm,
did not get hit with bans.
yeah,
This one, the card that I think was most called out for was Goblin Chain Whirler. That is the card that
easily.
most people have been complaining about. I would say if you were going to ban something in red, I might ban Chandra or Hazaret. Like, just
I
one of them so that
mhm.
the decks that are up against red don't have to deal with the trifecta or quadfecta, I guess, of Glorybringer, um, Rekindling Phoenix, Chandra, and Hazaret. Because the existence of each of them, and each of them providing different benefits and also requiring different answers, just puts a ton of strain on the person who is facing that array of cards. And if you remove one, then you can kind of start getting, a consensus of what your removal package should be. And you might be able to answer everything.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I would totally like. I think you're totally right on all those things. How like all those cards require very different answers, and which make it very hard for reactive decks to try and like combat them. But the one thing is, these cards, besides Rekindling Phoenix, all these cards are leaving in 3 months. So I think
Yeah.
Wizards has kind of come to the point where they're just like, okay, well, like let them kind of just romp around in standard for another 3 months, and then we'll see them out and never make this, or at least hope to never make this mistake again. Like we learned our lesson. I just think if they put the ban on right now, it would just leave such a sour taste in everyone's mouth that it just is not worth. Because banning it's like a really big deal, and I
Yeah.
think we can just kind of like stomach it for another three. Because I think these cards are definitely too good, and I'm hoping that once these really powerful cards leave the format, then maybe I don't think Chain War is gonna be unplayable, but hopefully it'll be like tier 2, so people can play X ones again.
Yeah.
But it's a little contentious because it could be really good still, and then we just have a big problem because you still look back and you're like, why is Rampaging Ferocidon banned and this isn't? Uh,
Yeah, that makes no sense. But I think that Chain Whirler is a great bridge, but it is not an end game unto itself.
oh, it so
So
isn't.
the
Yeah,
top end is not as incredible as it is right now, and Rekindling Phoenix is going to be around, but the other three,
yeah.
the
Hazard,
premier
Chandra
finisher,
Glory, all gone.
those are all
Yeah,
going to be gone. So I don't know if it's going to be as big of a problem,
I would guess it isn't, but
but who knows?
I
Because
haven't.
that card's
Yeah,
gross.
who
That
knows what
card's really
deals
good.
around? Yeah, all those cards are so good. Red is so good right now. Like if you're not playing it's a fairy deck, play a red deck. And if you're not playing a red deck or it's a fairy deck, honestly, you're probably doing it wrong. I
Like
don't mean to
black
be
white.
mean. Yeah, like even black white in our testing was just so bad. Like honestly, you just got thrashed by the red deck.
At the PPTQ I went to, that was the deck that ended up, I think, winning the whole thing was a
Yeah,
black white Knights. But
yeah,
it was
that's
a
fair.
weird thing, and I think had I not made a bad misplay or two, I
Hmm.
think I probably would have taken it with red.
Yeah.
So, like, mileage will vary. It was a PPTQ.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's unplayable. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. You can still play other archetypes. Like, don't let me just say like, oh, if you're playing Teferi or not or Red or Hazoret, you're just not playing standard right. Ha ha. Like, you can do other things. I just think that like over the long term, these decks are going to win a little bit more consistently than anything else. Also, the God-Pharaoh's Gift decks. Those decks have proven to be very good. I'm gonna give credits where credits due to those ones. So, but yeah, if you're not doing one of those, I don't know. Maybe maybe we can figure something out. Maybe that Sifter Worm deck's good. Who knows?
And we'll find out. But regardless, I think that the decision to not ban the Chain Whirler, at least for me personally, I'm glad I didn't have to get rid of my Chain Whirler.
I agree. I think it was a good call from Wizards. Just like let the ridiculous red cards rotate out, and if it's still a problem, we can ban it later. It's not like it's gonna be here. It doesn't. It's still on the table. Like we could still see a ban for Chain Whirler if it's too good, but I don't think it's gonna be, and I think it'll just be fine. So yeah. I'm happy with. The only thing about this whole BNR announcement that I really wished I would have saw is Ancient Stirrings being banned in Modern. I think that card is absolutely freaking ridiculous. Yes, you have to build your deck around it, so you hit colorless cards.
Oh no, you have to play artifacts and lands.
Oh no, exactly. But like the fact that you can't play Ponder or Preordain or even Gataxian Probe at this point, which obviously we talked about why that's such a good card. But the fact that you can't play those cards and you are that dig 3 cards deep in your deck, but you are allowed to play a card that digs 5 cards deep, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Absolutely none.
Yeah, and the decks that it enables, I feel like, are just so boring. Tron is a boring deck.
I hate as a Jeskai control player. I hate Tron.
I just, as someone who played against Tron when it was in Standard.
Tron was in Standard? Yeah.
All the Tron lands were in
I guess.
9th edition. Yeah.
What were the payoffs back then?
What were people killing you with? I think it was Dragon Legends with counters up.
That's pretty funny.
It was bad. I just remember people assembling Tron, and then it was turn 3 and they had 7 mana, and I was like, wait, why am I playing normal? This is an island. It makes 1 mana.
Yeah, honestly. It was my favorite thing at the IQ I went to this weekend where I played against my opponent, and it was game 2. I was down a game against Tron. He's on a mulligan to 5. I'm like, still going to lose because he's still going to assemble Tron on turn 4 and play some thick creature, and then I'm just going to lose. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Like, it's just such a... And, like, not just Tron, but also Karkon Ironworks. That deck is a little too consistent. Like, I'm all about having a combo-y deck that plays a lot of spells. Like Storm, that's in an awesome place balance-wise right now, where you can go off on turn 3 and roll your opponent if they have nothing. But there's tons of ways to interact. Like, against KCI, what do you have? Stony Silence, Rest in Peace? They just Nature's Claim it, then kill you. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's just it's an annoying deck to watch. Like,
yeah.
Yep, you're comboing off for the next 10 minutes, and you might not actually kill me.
Yeah.
Like, if I make you try to actually do it, you might not be able to. But then I might not get a game too.
Yeah, and the worst part is in a GP setting, sometimes you almost are obliged to concede due to time considerations just to make sure you can win in enough time. That's what I had to do in Vegas when I was playing against that stupid deck. Ugh, man. But the worst part is because you always get game 1s because when you're playing control, because they only have 4 things you have to counter in their deck, and then their deck does stone nothing. But then game 2, they bring in the defense grids and the guttural responses, and you just can't ever win. Response. And their deck's so consistent because of Ancient Stirrings. That card didn't exist. That deck, I think, would still be playable, but it would be a lot worse, which is great. That's exactly what a ban should do. So yeah, that's my vent on that. I really wished I would have saw the Ancient Stirrings ban, but hey, at least they got everything else as I would have thought would be great. So
yeah,
2 for 3.
I mean, there's a new set coming out. Maybe it'll shake up everything. Core Set 2019.
Oh yeah, Core Set. It's back.
So for those who have not been playing Magic recent enough to have seen a Core Set, if you're just playing recently. Core sets used to be a thing every year. It would be a set that had no story. There would sometimes be story significance, but there's no single location that the entire story is focused on. So they can do reprints. They can do non-kind of location-specific cards. They can do something that fits in with a set that has been out of standard or out of rotation for forever, or, something that's story-wise from Mirrodin, but we haven't been to Mirrodin in forever. But hey, it's a fun little plant that we can do for Modern or for, sideboard cards for Legacy. And generally the normal cards, like the commons and uncommons, tend to be very, very simple because they are meant to kind of teach new players what Magic is and what each of the colors really does. And then on top of that, the rares and the mythics, all of it's supposed to be, this is the whitest that white is. This is the blackest that black is. The bluest that blue is. All these cards are just supposed to basically define the colors for people, all the way up and down.
Yeah, and we're coming back. So I've always been excited for Core Set Limited. It's honestly, I don't know if everyone agrees, but it's one of my favorite limiteds because it's just like, it's Magic at its roots, really. You're playing like guys who have rates and very simple tricks, and there's not too much finagling or finessing. It's just like trying to purely out Magic your opponents more than any other format is.
Yeah, and you generally don't have that much crazy stuff going on, so it evens the playing field in a pretty decent way. Like, there generally aren't that many cards that just run away with the game all by themselves.
Yeah, no, there really aren't.
It gives us edges.
And also, and also coming right off of Dominaria, which of course was awesome. I loved Dominaria Limited, but that was like, there was a lot going on in Dominaria Limited. Like, it was kind of hard to keep up with at times. Not to take away, still awesome, but this will be like a nice little a little segue to something a little simpler. Kind of keep, you don't have to put so much thought into this format as you did last time. Everything's pretty clear. Like, the uncommons are all the multicolor uncommons kind of tell you where you should be for each of the archetypes. All the commons are just kind of like beaters. Just nice, simple.
So, are there any cards that really stand out to you? Because there's no new mechanics in this set. There are actually no new mechanics in this set. It's all reprints and bringing mechanics back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so stand out for standard. I guess I can start with the card that I absolutely am least excited to play, that I saw as reprinted for this standard format, which is Banefire, a reprint back from I think a Conflex, was it? Where it's red and X and it's Fireball, but if you pay 5 or more for it, it can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. So for context, so people who haven't followed standard as much, people against the control decks tended to bring in this card called Fight with Fire, which is 3 mana, deal 5 damage to a creature, or you could pay 9 mana.
What a great card.
Yeah, so powerful. But then you could pay 9 mana to make it deal 10 damage split among any number of targets.
Yeah!
This card is a way better Banefire, or a way better Fight with Fire for your red deck sideboard. And I do not understand why red need this tool against control, because I think this might swing the pendulum way towards the red aggro decks. Because now you can't just sit there with your Teferi and your 6 counterspells anymore, because they could just rip a Banefire for 11 off the top of your deck, and you're can't do anything about that. I'm dead. It's over. Good game.
As the person who loves fireballs, I've played a variant of Fireball in my deck almost every single time I've played Standard. I was playing Mind Swipe. I was playing Jaya's Immolating Inferno. I've played a lot of Fireballs.
Oh, I have no problem with Fireballs. It's just the current state of red and now this, it just feels like insult to injury. Yeah, man, I don't know. But maybe, I think that what's probably gonna happen is control decks are gonna have to get even lower to the ground so they don't die to this card on turn 11 or something like that. You're probably gonna see more Scarab Gods over Teferi now, but that's just my guess. We'll see.
Well,
but
I think it's probably a net gain if we can get rid of the white-blue decks that don't play any kill spells or any way to win other than Teferi.
Oh yeah, no, I would be happy if this card was just in black, Actually, no, I wouldn't, because red-black's great. But if red-black aggro didn't get this card, I'd be happy. If we just didn't make the tier 1 deck even better.
That's true. But I think Banefire is a generally fair card. I think specifically for right now, it will be more powerful than it will be in 4 months.
Oh, yeah, easily. Very, very easily. It's very context. I think once rotation happens, we lose all the good red cards. This card will be fine, and it'll do what it was intended to do, and they reprinted it. So guess I'll just stomach it for 4... Or I'll probably just play mono red for 4 months, and I can go back to playing my control decks.
Until then, I'll be playing it.
Yeah, hey, I remember last time the Tournament came out, they gave Azorius. We got a lot of goodies in that set. Ooh, Sphinx's Revelation, Azorius Charm, Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict. Oh, man. Would be nice.
Yes. The card I'm probably least looking forward to playing against. Let's see, because Tezzeret Artifice Master seems like a dude. Actually, I think...
Oh, you're not excited about that card? That card looks sweet.
I'm excited. The card I'm not excited to play against is Death Baron.
Oh, yeah. It's. I think it's going to be ice. Is it because it's kind of like a cash grab for the Amaget zombies? Or...
Yeah, I just don't want to see... I don't like zombies as a archetype. I don't like playing against it. It's just, how many lords can you throw out there?
Yeah, kind of.
It's the least interesting tribal, I think. And on top of it, they have a built-in, like, our things don't die. And I find that most of the problematic kind of loops in Magic come from, like, linear strategies and inability to kill anything. Like, needing specific answers or stuff coming back over and over and over again. They're just annoying play patterns. And yet another lord that makes that tribe even more powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree. I see. I totally see what you mean. But they kind of made a lot of tribal lords for this set. Like we got zombies, we got dragons, we got spirits, we got goblins, we got knights. Like they just threw them all at us. Oh yeah, elves too. We have elves as well. There's like literally 6 different tribes represented in this set through a rare lord. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. They also printed like Diregraph Ghoul and that new 2-mana 3/2 and like the 1-mana 1/1 that mills you for 3 when it enters and dies. So yeah, there's a lot of I just
that thing is gross.
Oh yeah, that thing's pretty good. I don't know how good it is going to be against Senior or Chain Whirler, but we'll see.
I mean, so we can save that because I think that's might be the best card in the set.
Really? Okay, yeah. So we'll save that for later then. All right. So
yeah.
I'm interested to hear your opinion on that.
What of these different tribal incentives do you think is the one that's most attractive to you?
Oh yeah, so I think it's easily spirits. In modern this is not standard at all in modern because I play against the banned spirits deck, and that deck is actually pretty close to being good. Like it has solid disruption. It like through Spell Queller, the Nebelgast Herald, I believe it's the 1-mana one. You have Coco, you got Geist of Saint Traff. That deck has a lot of solid cards, but the problem with the deck is its Lord costs 3 mana in that, like that, I don't even know what it's called, but that white-blue one guy that's a 2/2 with flying. It's
a captain. He gives everyone hexproof.
Yeah, he gives all the spirits +1. He's a 3-mana 2/2 with flying, and he gives all your spirits +1/+1 hexproof. And that card's pretty good, but it's a 3-mana Lord, and 3-mana Lords just tend to be bad. This card is a 2-mana Lord. I think that's a really big deal, because spirits don't have a whole lot of good plays on 2 besides Rattle Chains. And I think this guy, he's just going to slot right in there. Maybe that deck will be another thing you can do in Modern now. So that's pretty sweet. I'm all over that.
Yeah, I think I kind of already mentioned. I think the Zombie Lord is going to probably push things.
Oh, yeah. No, in
closer.
Standard.
Definitely in Standard. I don't think the Dragon Lord's going to get there. I don't think the Goblin Lord's going to get there just because right now it doesn't have the support. The Spirit Lord has like no support in Standard.
Oh, yeah, there's a dragon. Oh, are you talking about Latchless right now?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's definitely not going to get there.
Yeah. So I think that the only one is Death Baron.
Yeah, no, Death Baron. If we're talking Standard right now, yeah. The zombies are... Because the thing is, I feel like this is kind of just like a cash grab for the Amonkhet zombies. Because I actually played zombies in the Ixalan RPTQ or the Pro Tour Ixalan RPTQ. So it was Hour of Devastation Standard. And I played zombies in that. And that deck was really good. And it's only missing a few pieces, like it's missing Relentless Dead and Diregraph Colossus. And these cards are pretty decent replacements for those 2 cards. So it's probably going to be a deck, but only for 3 months because the Amonkhet zombies are going to rotate in 3 months. So
yeah, probably, unless we get a ton from Golgari and
Ravnica. It could happen, but I just don't see it because Amonkhet was like zombies was one of like the core themes of that set because like the whole flavor of the thing was literally nothing died, so there was a lot of zombies.
Yeah, I think in terms of tribal support, Dragons probably got the most.
Oh yeah,
Dragons I think will probably be a Standard deck.
Yeah, no, I think those are the dragons, like the 3-mana artifact, like the Horde of Gold or whatever it's called. That card is here. Actually, let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, Dragon's Horde. It's the 3-mana rock. You can tap for any color, and whenever dragons enter, if you put a gold counter on it, and then you can tap it and remove a gold counter to the draw card. That card is so good, like insane, because it ramps you into your dragons and it just draws you cards. Yeah. What more could you want?
But I think Sarkhan Fireblood.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of the best cards in the set. It's 3 mana for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. His first +1, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So he can Tormenting Voice.
Yeah.
Second +1, add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells, which is pretty darn good as a second option for plussing.
Yeah, you just go dragon on 4.
Yeah. -7, create 4/5/5 red dragon creature tokens with flying. So that's an ultimate that will end the game. But for a 3-mana Planeswalker to have an ultimate that actually can end the game by itself is actually pretty rare. Usually 3-mana Planeswalkers, like, they'll give you a big insurmountable advantage sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll put you in a really good position. But this is one that asks nothing of you. Like, think Saheeli Rai. She really required you to have, giant artifacts in your deck that you wanted to tutor up. Even Liliana the Veil, like, taking out half of your opponent's permanents, very devastating. But might not end the game on the spot. Liliana the Last Hope, I feel like, is the best example of the insurmountable ultimate.
I have never lost ultimating a Liliana the Last Hope.
and she is probably she's one of the gold standards for 3-mana Planeswalkers. So Sarkhan not getting quite there, I think, is fine. But his first plus is, I think, deceptively powerful.
I agree.
As someone who has cast Jaya Ballard before, functionally, I did not often use much more than discard 1 card, draw 1 card. Like, having the option to go up to 3 was nice, but oftentimes you've got some cards in your hand that you want. So only getting to do it 1 at a time I don't think is that big of a restriction. And Sarkhan's 2 mana cheaper and much easier to cast. But his second +1, they printed a bunch of Elder Dragons in this set.
They did.
1 for each shard. And each of them is very, very powerful. And Sarkhan, just by himself, can get you 2 of the 3 colors you need.
It gets you to every single one of, besides Chromium. You can't literally go Chromium into him. But yeah, it gets you to all the other ones. Arcades? Well, technically you can. He's 4 mana. You mean just like, oh no, I meant like you untap with your mana, then you could plus, and yeah. But,
oh yeah, I just meant the colors. Like he can get you to Nicol Bolas,
I see
Palladium Wars.
Yeah, I got what you're
Victus
saying.
Asmati if you've got nothing but red mana.
Yeah. That is completely accurate. But as you were saying earlier, like I think it does ask you for something. Like if you don't play a dragon deck, his second +1 does nothing. So I would say that is a real cost. He's asking you to get to that ultimate because you can't realistically hold it down there for that long if you're not going to be playing any dragons to potentially protect it. But yeah, it has 2 +1s though, so it's only going up. So eventually, if you don't deal with this card, it's going to kill you with 5 angry dragons with flying.
Yeah, but the plus that it's giving you, just the Tormenting Voice plus, is kind of a 2-mana spell that it's giving you every turn.
Yeah.
Which is legit value, and you don't have to use it. You can just keep plussing him. I think you should play him, obviously, in a dragon deck, because that second plus is ridiculously powerful, especially in a deck that can be base red. Like, you don't have to have any green in there, and you can ramp pretty darn hard. But I think he just doesn't ask that much for a 3-mana, quote-unquote, synergy planeswalker. Like, if the fail case is you've played this dude, he's going to tick up to 4, you're going to get as many Tormenting Voices as you can get, and then they have to eventually deal with him. Like, that's a better fail case than, like, some other 3-mana planeswalkers.
No, you're right. Like Saheeli Rai, where you just, like, scry every turn. It's like, ugh, man, this card stinks. I remember playing that when I was back in the Felidar Guardian days, where that card was still absurd, but you sometimes just sitting there scrying as they killed your Saheeli, and you're like, wow, I just played 3-mana scry 1. That sucked.
Yep, deal 1. Scry 1.
Scry 1, deal 1, my bad. And especially because, like, the Elder Dragons, these cards are real payoffs. I think all of them besides Arcades are going to see play in Standard, or actually probably not Victus either. But Chromium, Nicol Bolas, and Palladium Wars, I think are certainly going to see Standard play. Maybe not right away, but at some point in their lives, they're going to be in decks, like as mainstays in their decks, which is really cool. Like, they're really cool cards, and they're very iconic, so it's cool like that. Because these are based on, like, the first legendaries, I believe, right? The Elder Dragons, they're the first?
Yeah, they were the first tricolor cards, I think.
Yeah, so we're ramping into
the first tricolor cards.
So we're ramping into real things. Like, this isn't just like stupid, like really bad. Like, we don't have to like concede as much in our deck building because these are cards we probably want to ramp into anyway.
Yeah, unlike I was thinking. So he's just basically like a mini Jaya Ballard. His plus is Jaya's plus, except slightly smaller. His second plus is Jaya's second plus, except instead of 3 mana that's only on instants and sorceries, it's 2 mana just on dragons. And actually, I think the dragons restriction is better than the instants and sorceries restriction.
I agree.
And then the final ultimate, I think the dragons might actually be better than Past in Flames.
Easily. Like, because you actually have to have good stuff in your yard to make the Past in Flames do anything. Ooh, excuse me. To do anything.
Yeah, so, like, let's just look at some of the dragons, because I think that there are a couple ways that you can go with Sarkin.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are two obvious ways. One is Grixis, and the other is Naya. I think if you go red, black, blue, and play Nicol Bolas the Ravager, that is probably the safest way to go.
Yeah, so Nicol Bolas is just a really strong card. This is like
Because he's
house. I think pure power level wise, this is the highest power level card in the set. Almost.
Can you read
easily.
what he does?
Yeah, sure. So he's a 4-mana 4/4 flying. You got to pay 1 red, blue, black, red. So, and when he enters the battlefield, your opponent discards a card, or each opponent discards cards. So EDH fans, you get everybody, and then you can pay 7 mana to flip him into Nicol Bolas the Arisen, which is a planeswalker which starts at 7 loyalty and is a +2 to draw 2 cards, a -3, to deal 10 damage to target creature or planeswalker, a -4 to just yank any creature or planeswalker from a graveyard into play under your control, and then a -12 that exiles your opponent's entire library except the last card. Because Nicol Bolas gotta leave you with something, right? You can't take everything away. Yeah, it's like, I'll give you one more chance. Let's see what you can do with that. Absolutely, like forget the Planeswalker. A 4-mana 4/4 flying that makes your opponent discard a card. That's just good. That's good rates. And it's a dragon too, so it doesn't even get Glorybringered. It's just, there's no arguing with that kind of value. And then if you just reach the end game and you flip it, you just kind of win. Drawing 3 cards a turn, it's pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, sometimes you cast him on turn 6 or 7, and then you just, from then on, your opponent is just constantly afraid. They have to have, an answer to this thing at all times.
Yeah. Funny enough, funny enough, this is probably intentional from Wizards, but this card reminds me a lot of the Eldest Reborn, if you played that at all in Standard, where it comes into play and it makes you lose a card, like an incidental card, which could be really good or could be kind of whatever, and then you just let it sit and play for a while, and it just gains so much value, and it's so good, and insurmountable value even. I think, especially because you can almost do almost the exact play pattern with Nicol Bolas the Ravagers you do with Eldest Reborn, where you play them, they lose a thing, then you flip it and you bring that thing back. It's very similar, but this is obviously a little bit better, I think. So,
and if his worst case is you flip him and then you deal with a creature or a planeswalker and then deal with another one, the fact that you can deal with 2 and still have a Nicol Bolas the Arisen is gross.
Oh yeah, and also I just think it's a humongous flavor win that this card even harkens back to the Eldest Reborn, since the Eldest Reborn is literally a saga about Nicol Bolas coming to Dominaria. So that's great. And then
if you're, I think, going with the Grixis Dragons strategy, you get Bolas, which is kind of the big payoff, the big attraction to Grixis. But I think people are kind of sleeping on Skeleton Dragon.
Oh, Skeleton Dragon. Yeah. No, this card, it's just, it rewards you for playing Magic. It is not a bad rate on its front end, and in later in the game, you just pull it back, and it's there. It doesn't really care what 7 cards you exile, just exile 7. It's back.
Yeah, it is a 5/4 flying dragon that has 5 mana, exile 7 cards from your graveyard, put Skeleton Dragon into play. Not tapped.
Not tapped, just comes into play, and it can even block. You can just pop right back and block. A lot of those cards that come back from the graveyard, they have that can't block, enter tap, something can't do it exactly on the first turn you play it. But no, this guy just comes in. Good rates.
Yeah, Bone Dragon. And also instant speed.
Yeah, yes, instant speed as well. So you could just hold up the mana, and if you can reanimate it, awesome. If you can't, if you need to do something else, cool. We'll save it for later. Especially on top of the fact that we get Spit Flame, which I think is very good.
Yeah, Spit Flame, that's another great card. And all of these things play well with the graveyard in one way or another. And then you can use some other graveyard shenanigans, Stitcher Supplier, which we'll get to later. You can fill your yard pretty darn quickly. And if you're going to be playing these cards, many of them are also legendary, which you can use to power Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, which is one of the most powerful cards that is not seeing play right now. So I feel like all of these things come together to make a very compelling case for Grixis to be the color to be playing dragons with. The other combination, I think, is Naya, and that is because I think Palladium Moors might just be the Nutter Butters.
It's pretty good. People have historically underestimated hexproof, and this card rocks hexproof pretty well. Admittedly, it doesn't have it forever, but you get that first satisfying crunch in there. It's like Glorybringer. You get the one attack in there. You don't even care if they kill it or not. You did your value.
She is 3 and then red, green, white for a 6/6 flying vigilance trample that has hexproof if she hasn't dealt damage yet. So she will always deal with something.
Yep. She'll block something, she'll hit something, she'll kill a planeswalker, she'll do something before she dies. And also, while we're on the Elder Dragons, I can't leave out my boy Chromium. I think Chromium is he's not like the most powerful control win condition ever printed. Teferi's probably up there on that one. But Chromium does a very important thing to the control mirror, where if you don't come prepared for Chromium, you will get smacked. Chromium will kill you. Like, if you're playing, like, the traditional Esper control list that plays Essence Scatters, Vraska's Contempts, Cast Downs, all their removal spells, and tries to win the game with the Scarab God, you will get smacked by Chromium. That is just what's going to happen. Yeah. So it redefines how control mirrors are going to be played. Because if I just decide to put one Chromium in my Esper control deck, my opponent decides to not put one Chromium in their Esper control deck, they are at a humongous disadvantage.
Yeah, he makes Nezahal looks silly.
He does. I played Nezahal in the main deck of a control deck once, and it was sad. But this card's actually good because it has flash and it's flying and can't be countered and can protect itself like without discarding 3 cards.
Yeah, one card is better than 3 cards.
Who would have thought?
But just one thing on Palladium Ores, which is an interaction that I'm really interested in. She carries the Black Blade really well.
Oh yeah, she does, doesn't she? That would be an interesting thing to see, especially because once you get to her, you probably have a lot of lands in play anyway.
She can probably crack in for... So if you go Sarkhan, so turn 2 Black Blade, turn 3 Sarkhan, turn 4 Palladium Ores.
Yeah, that's...
Equip Bash, you probably...
It probably won that game. Maybe even 11. But another thing that you actually just reminded me of is one of my friends, like this, I'm not sure, like this might be crazy, but one of my friends went to a BBDQ once, and this was back in the era, like right after Marvel got banned, so there was the energy mid-range decks going all over the place, and I really felt like I broke it with an energy deck that was really good in the energy mirror, and since there was only energy decks, it was great. So I gave it to my friend, and I played it, and I won a BBDQ with it, and it was awesome. My friend got to the finals of the BBDQ, and he's like, this deck's great. But then at the finals of the PvDQ deck, he was beaten by this deck that played 4 Carnage Tyrants and 4 Onward to Victories. And it was like a weird hexproof deck that slammed a really big hexproof dude and then like put some pants on it with Onward to Victory or some other cards like give Double Strike or +X where X is its power, like all those kind of cards, and just one hit kill you. Palladium Ores seems pretty good in that kind of deck because it happens to be Naya. That deck already happened to be Naya, and this is a Naya hexproof dragon that you can't interact with until it hits you once. Yes. So I'm just saying, maybe you play 4 Carnage Tyrants, you play 4 Palladium Ores, you play a bunch of pump spells and a few ramp spells. Not saying it's going to be a deck, but I wouldn't, if it becomes a deck, you heard it here first.
Yes, hexproof, always dangerous, and this is one of the biggest bodies that comes with hexproof, and most evasive.
Oh yeah, no, big and evasive. Flying and trample. There's not a lot that can get in front of flying and trample.
Yeah, she beats Lyra one-on-one.
She does. Very few things can do that. So yeah, no, I totally, the Elder Dragons, they're going to be exciting to see. Hopefully they see play. I hope they just don't see more mono red. I'm always afraid of that.
So, what do you think is the most underrated card in the set? The card that people are not talking about that you think is going to be very, very powerful? Oh,
that's an easy one. As we're on the topic of dragons, we got to talk about Demanding Dragon. The 5-mana, 5-mana 5/5 flying. When it ETBs, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacks a dude. You think, when you look at this card, it's pre-ordering for $1 apparently on Star City Games or TCG. Someone's pre-ordering
TCG.
It's TCG. It's $1 right now. And let me break this down. I know Punisher cards are usually terrible because Punisher cards are usually terrible. But this Punisher card isn't actually always a Punisher card. This is, you play it, and if your opponent has no dudes, they have to take 5. You can set up situations where this card always hits them for 5. And if you can do that, then this card is better than Thundermaw Hellkite because you can still leave it back to block. And even if they do have a guy to sack, they're sacking a dude. That's so good. That's like a Glory Bringer that's a point bigger. I think this card's great. It might not.
It's like it has haste.
It is like it has haste in one way or another. And I'm not sure if it's better than Glory Bringer because I think Glory Bringer is the best 5-mana red dragon printed ever. But when rotation happens, this card isn't everywhere. I'm going to be very surprised. I think this card's great.
Yeah, I already mentioned Bone Dragon for me, but
yeah.
I think something that's being slept on a little bit is Sarkhan's Unsealing.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that one.
It's 4 mana whenever you cast a creature spell, so cast, not resolve. Cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6. Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control.
It's like a super chain whirler.
Repeatable damage is gross, generally speaking. 4 mana is a lot for a do-nothing enchantment. It is traditionally, that's asking a lot. Those sorts of cards almost never get there. However, the payoff on this one is so high that it might.
I agree. I definitely agree. Because, think about it like this. This card, if you can set it up to play a big thing right after the turn, this card is pretty close to Phyrexian Scriptures, where it'll kill most of the things that are in play the turn after you play it. But in a sense, it's even better than Phyrexian Scriptures, because if you have the thing to play the 7-power dude, which I'm assuming you have a lot of if you're playing this card in your deck, it doesn't hurt your guys. It only hits their guys. So it's like a Plague Wind almost, because there's not that many things that are bigger than 4 toughness right now that are seeing play in Standard.
Yeah, and that is just, if you can just stack your deck, things with power 4 don't have to be expensive. They've printed 2 mana 4-power creatures before.
They have.
If you can get some 2 or 3 mana 4-power creatures, you don't have to hit 7. But if you just keep doming people for 4, you're gonna get there. It only takes 5.
We just had a dinosaur block, and we just had a 4 mana 7/7 printed. The bodies are there. They are definitely present. Yes. So I would definitely, and one other card on that for the there's a couple cards I guess are underrated. I don't know if Tezzeret's underrated, but I think this card's absolutely bananas. Yeah. And if it doesn't,
bananas.
Yeah, I think everything. Oh yeah, well 5 mana. It starts at 5 loyalty. You plus him to make a Thopter token, and then he has a 0 where you draw a card. But if you control 3 or more artifacts, you draw 2. And then 9, he gives you his -9 gives you a personal planar bridge, aka at the beginning of your end step, you get a permanent and put it into play, and then you shuffle your library. So this card's crazy. I think in an artifact deck, you play this alongside Karn, it's going to be absolutely crazy. I don't know. I don't think enough people have been talking about this card. It seems. Yeah. I just remember reading it. It was near the end of the spoiler season. I'm like, why are people not talking about this? This card, it protects itself. It draws you a boatload of cards, and it supports an archetype that's almost good enough already.
Yeah, so. He's going to be very good, at least until Kaladesh rotates. To be seen if there will be enough good artifacts after that. But I think there are. Dominaria has a lot of good ones. And
Karn's not an artifact, but he might as well be one. So
but he makes them.
He makes them, yeah. If you go turn 4 Karn to turn 5 Teferi, and you play a treasure map or some sort of artifact before then, that's a really strong curve and pretty tough for a lot of decks to beat. So yeah, I thought I'd mention that one.
Something I'm really liking that I think is a little bit scary is Meteor Golem.
Meteor Golem? Really?
Yeah.
What makes you like that one, though?
So it's 7 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls.
Yeah.
They don't generally print 7 mana destroy a permanent is not amazing. We know it's bad. We know it's not playable.
We do.
But 7 mana in no color in particular, it's 7 generic mana. It gives something that can make big mana removal and a threat.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between just removal and removal plus a body is pretty significant. I don't think that this would see play in Tron.
No, you just play usually Karn,
but this is the kind of thing where it's treading on color pie where I get a little worried.
Yeah. The more I look at it now, at first I didn't think about it, but yeah, no, it could be good, especially if you start in a deck like Godpharaoh's Gift, maybe, where if they bring this thing back and just smash one of your non-land permanents on turn 4, that seems like it's probably GG, especially because it's a 4/4.
Vindicate is 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, and Giants are 4.
Yeah,
generally.
That's
so
7.
But it's literally Hill Giant plus Vindicate, except.
Well, it doesn't go for lands. It doesn't go for lands either.
Yes. That's
pretty important, but
which is pretty important. But for Standard, I don't think this will see play anywhere outside of Standard.
Oh,
I don't even think
absolutely
it's
not.
necessarily particularly likely to see play in Standard.
Mhm.
But it's the sort of thing where if you have reanimation, getting to reanimate a Vindicate is good. As someone who has played against Desolation Angel, which was basically, I think it was also 7 mana. It was a 4/4 Flying Angel plus Vindicate, but it had heavy white-black requirements, and people just would reanimate it. This thing, it looks innocuous, but if you can reanimate it, if you can get big mana very quickly, it gives green decks that are ramping access to hard removal, and it gives black decks that are reanimating value that even like a Chupacabra can't give you.
Yeah, no, that's true. And like the more I think about it, in like those white blue Godpharaoh's gift decks, honestly, like this card's a pretty decent backup target for refurbish. If you don't have a Godpharaoh's gift in your yard, you just refurbish this guy back and then just smash a permanent. Doesn't even sound that bad.
Yeah,
It's like a better cast out in that sense. But
I think it's a threat. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it in a weird fringe deck. So what do you think is the best card in the set?
the best card, huh? Oh, that's a tough one. I think I still gotta like go just like raw power level. Nicol Bolas is just so really good, really good. But I could easily be wrong on this. Like I didn't see Chain Whirler coming in Dominaria the way it absolutely dominated it in the way it did, and I don't even think Nicol Bolas is going to see that much play right now. But I just think after rotation, like a Grixis mid range deck rocking a bunch of copies of this guy is going to be really strong because pound for pound, this guy brings the value, and he brings it better than any card I've ever seen.
That he does. And I just think that he's such an incentive to be in Grixis that if his time isn't now, his time will eventually be.
Yep.
It's also he just does so much. He asks so little and does so much.
Oh yeah, like you bring exactly. That's the thing. You bring so little to the table. Like, but yeah, if you're like building your deck around cards, there's definitely you can pull more power out of certain cards. But just he literally asks you play blue, black, and red in your deck. That's it.
And then survive for a
and then survive.
Not even.
Yeah,
you could,
like but he protects you.
Kill them.
He protects you too. He's a 4/4 for 4 that flies. That's protection, and also makes you discard. Like let's say they have one card in hand. It's like that Banefire that's going to kill you. Your opponent's playing red aggro and they run Banefire against you. See you later, Banefire.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, he is a blunt instrument, but I think a strong one.
Yep.
My pick is, like I said earlier, Stitcher's Supplier. So this is a 1-mana, 1/1 zombie. But when it enters the battlefield or dies, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. This is the most self-mill I think they've ever printed on a card.
Yeah.
That has a bot, like, that does anything. Like, there are cards that you can target at yourself. Like, there's actually, no. I think it's, like, generally 2 mana to mill 5 on target player in blue. There's Glimpse the Unthinkable, which for 2 mana can mill 10. Mm-hmm. But those are just cards that only mill.
Yeah. There's a big difference between creatures and instants and sorceries and stuff.
Yes. This creature is a 1/1 that, if all it does is come in, chump, and die, has put 7 cards in your graveyard. That's so much.
That's a lot.
That fuels almost every single delve card by itself. You don't need to do any other work. You just need to cast this and have it die, either through combat or you can kill it yourself. You can, do all sorts of stuff like that. But what it can conceivably do for Dredge is really scary.
Dredge. Wow, yeah, I guess if they're playing Insolent Neonate in that deck, right? So I don't see why they don't play this card. Yeah, I could see it.
That's super scary. It's really scary for what it can enable for delving. Like, there are all sorts of delve cards that, if you can turbo them out, like, people are playing Gurmag Angler in...
the Death Shadow decks?
No, the Hollow One decks.
Oh, yeah, Hollow One, yeah.
Gurmag Angler sees a ton of play, but when you're conceivably going 7 deep on turn 1, if you go Stitcher Supplier Gut Punch, you can get 8 deep on turn 1 without your opponent getting to interact with it at all. You can go on turn 2 stuff like Soul. Do you know this card Soul Flare?
Yeah, I do know Soul Flare. Yeah, paired it with Chromanticore at one point.
Yeah, so you can mill Gristlebrand. You could mill and do Goryo's Vengeance stuff. You could mill Soul Flare. You can use Soul Flare to mill stuff like what is it, Tulpa?
The fat dinosaur. Yep.
The big fat white one that gives you indestructible flying, double strike, vigilance, all these different things.
Yeah, like that. The Godfarer's decks used to play, or they do still play. It's a Minister of Inquiries, I believe it is, where it's the 1 mana 1/2. You get 2 energy, and then you can tap and pay an energy to mill for 3. So this guy's like the literal best case scenario for Minister of Inquiries every single time.
Yep.
Which is
and it gets to chump.
Yeah, it does.
Minister, you generally had to pick. Is it going to get its value for milling, or is it going to get, or can I use it as a creature? This benefits from being used as a chump blocker.
Oh, yeah, and then once you chump with it, you bring it back with Godfarrow's Gift, and it's a 4/4, and it does the whole thing again. That seems pretty good.
Dredge effects and all sorts of stuff like that, it just will supercharge those strategies. And I already mentioned how I like Grixis Dragons. If you go turn 1 Stitcher Supplier and mill, say, for example, Spitfire, Bone Dragon, any of the dragons you want to reanimate, and then you can use any of the, Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, you can use other reanimation spells. It doesn't take a lot to get there. And you could use, what's the red-black split card, Aftermath card?
Cut Ribbons?
No, the other one. But also Cut Ribbons.
Other one, let me think.
Claim to Fame.
Oh, Claim to Fame, yeah.
That card exists. Claim this card back, mill again.
That's pretty fun. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
So you can get a whole bunch of graveyard synergies going, and this card just mills so much that you don't need any other support. It is support unto itself, and it reminds me a lot of Thought Scour, except it digs more.
It digs more in Thought Scour. It is a 1/1, so there's definitely the give and take with Thought Scour, but
yes.
It's not an upgrade by any stretch. But if it does the graveyard thing, I think better than anything we've seen. I think you can kind of compare it to Hedron Crab, I think, where that card you need to have a fetch land right away to make sure you milled 6, and this card always milled 6. So I could totally see it. And if we're talking about milling cards, one of the decks that I'm definitely gonna try, which I'm certain is terrible, is the Liliana Untouched by Death, the Liliana combo where you play Liliana, then you play the Conspiracy for 3 mana from Ixalan, it's like a 3 mana enchantment and it turns all your creatures into a certain creature type. You name Zombie with that, then you either have a Metallic Mimic or a Plague Belcher and a Walking Ballista. And you just combo them. You kill it with a ballista for 0 a million trillion times. So I'm definitely gonna try that deck out. Whether or not
that sounds fun.
Oh yeah, deck's great. Or deck's really cool. So I don't know. It's probably gonna be terrible, but it's gonna be a really good time. And Stitcher Supplier is probably gonna be a 4 in that deck. So
yeah, and I just feel like any time I've seen a card that circumvents the costs like that. Mm-hmm. I don't see how this doesn't at least find a home in a modern Dredge.
Oh yeah,
it just does so much, and you don't care if it dies. You want it to die.
Yeah, it's actively good to die. You're right. It's easy. You just make the Insolent Neonate comparison. This card's probably just better than Insolent Neonate in almost every situation, because with Insolent Neonate, the most you're realistically milling with that card is 5, because you discard a Stinkweed Imp to it, and then you dredge that Stinkweed Imp for 5. This card will mill you 6. That is 5. 5 is a card that exists if you mill 5 cards with 1 card, that's a card that exists in Modern right now. If you mill 6 cards with if you mill 6 cards with 1 card, then that's a card that got banned in Modern in Golgari Grave Troll.
Yes, and also worth mentioning, Insolent Neonate, you need to have the Stinkweed Imp. There are other dredge cards that don't dredge that much, and you can play both.
You can. Certainly can.
Maybe you don't need to play, Fiery Confluence? Not Confluence, the Conflagration.
Oh, that
the
card
one that lets you discard a bunch of cards.
Yeah, that card's pretty good for what it's worth, but...
Yes, there are other cards that you might consider removing if you're going to be playing a 1-drop that mills you 7.
Yeah, you probably just cut the Neonates, right? I think this card's just a strict upgrade almost. It's also in black, which is I don't know if that's good or bad. The deck's already black, red, green, so have to consult the Dredge experts there, because I think Dredge just took out the most recent Open too, so the deck's definitely living. The blood is pumping in there.
Yeah, and I just think that like delve strategies have not been super powerful because right now you tend to not go all in on them. But if you've got just some really powerful, really early game that doesn't ask a lot to just fill your graveyard up, then you might be able to just do the dang thing. You know?
Yeah. For what it's worth, I do believe Hollow One is pretty close to a delve strategy. For like, I know it's not dedicated delve, but like it has Tassiger, it has Gurmag Anglers, it's got the Faithless Lootings, the Bloodghast, the Kindling Phoenix. Like that's pretty darn close to being a pretty dedicated delve deck because it relies on its 4 power creatures, which happens to be its delve creatures plus Hollow One, pretty hard.
Yep. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this set. Were there any cards that you wanted to call out that we have not mentioned?
Yeah, just one. Just one. We can be real quick on it. Is Nexus of Fate. I still gotta I know everyone was kind of salty, but it feels like all the wave around it kind of faded away. But we still feel like I have to acknowledge this card's existence. Why is this card not in the set? I don't understand.
Yeah, this is a buy a box promo that is 7 mana, take an instant speed, take an extra turn, and then is it shuffle?
Yeah, it's when it's actually whenever it's put into the graveyard from anywhere. So whether you casted it, if you just flipped it over from your deck, if you were milling with the Stitcher Supplier, any sort of way, if this card's going to go to your graveyard, you instead reveal it and you shuffle it back into your deck. I think this card is going to be better in Approach than the Second Sun, which is fine. But the fact that this card could actually see play in Standard and you can only get it as a buy-a-box promo, that bothers me. I don't like that. It's because it's really good with this card called Teferi that people are playing a little bit of right now, and it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
It's too close to being playable.
It is. I think it is playable, too. I think this, because if you compare it to Approach to the Second Sun, on its first cast, you get a marginal effect, would rather it be either 7 life or an extra turn. And then in the late game, you just win because once you start getting these, you can start chaining them. And once your deck becomes so little, you can literally take infinite turns. And then once you do that, you usually win the game. So I don't know. I think I might be playing this card at some point. It's standard legality, which bothers me because it should be in the set if I'm going to play it in standard.
Sure, I agree. Card I want to call out, I guess, is Alpine Moon.
Oh yeah, the next in the series of Tron hate cards.
Yeah, I just like that it exists. It's so specific. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a non-basic land card name, and then lands with the chosen name lose all types and abilities and gain tap, add one mana of any color?
Yeah, any color.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's good. That you could use that on your own stuff. I thought it was 1 mana of only colorless.
No, it's any color.
That's weird fixing.
It is. It's really weird fixing. Yeah. Huh. I'm trying. It is non-basic though, so you can't just play. You can't just play all plains in your deck or all mountains in your deck. Play an Alpine Moon. You just have all colors forever. But
I misread it. I thought it was only hate. I thought it just shut down. I mean, it does shut down Tron.
It does, which is funny. You don't think that when you first look at it, but by losing all land types, they're not Tron lands anymore. So yeah, it does that.
That it's good at, but
it's also
I don't know what to think of it now.
Funny enough,
should I be playing it or should I be using it to shut? Am I using it proactively or reactively?
Why not both? If you're putting it in your deck, you might as well use it for as much as you can, as long as you're not too reliant on it.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Weird.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird card, especially because it could also, ironically enough, it could see play in Tron sideboards as well, because they could name the kind of lands that are going after their lands, like Ghost Quarter, Field of Ruin, kind of stuff. Not necessarily, or even Ink Moth Nexus against Infect if they really want that. So I could see it in the sideboard of Tron, which would be pretty funny.
Oh, and another card, Sleep.
Sleep, it's back.
It's back.
So good and limited. Good luck ever beating this card in a board stall.
Yep. Tap all creatures target player controls. They don't untap during their next untap step.
Yeah,
it's so savage.
It's like if you didn't kill them in the first crackback, they'll die in the second one. There's nothing they can do about it. Yeah, just prepare to lose some games of limited to this card. It'll never see play in any constructed format, nor does it have to. You think? Or it's the format.
Standard?
Standard.
You don't think that 2 turns of free wax at the Pinata could find its way into at least a fringe deck?
Some decks don't even play creatures.
Yes, I mean I don't think it's in every deck.
Okay, it could be in the okay. For what it's worth, it could be in the sideboard of a blue tempo deck to go over the top in aggro mirrors. But let's not play in the main deck, because like you're gonna have
Probably
to
not.
sleep and hit in your hand. Your opponent's gonna have a Teferi at like 6, and you're like, what does this card do? What am I doing right now?
Does fun things. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah, Teferi's chill at sleeping. He's a time mate. I'm assuming he's done something like that before.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Departed Deckhand. I think it's very cute that they made another pirate.
Yeah, Pirate Spirit too. So you get to throw it in Pirates and Spirits, and
It's just a shame that Pirates didn't get there. Pirates still won't get there. This Departed Deckhand, not the thing that makes Pirates
enough.
get there.
Nope. Also,
cute.
Also a shout out to my boy Essence Scatter. I'm very happy to see this card because it was going to rotate out if it wasn't printed in this set. Now I can rest easy as a control player, knowing I'm going to have access to Essence Scatter for the next year and a half. So that's nice.
I'm surprised they didn't reprint Negate as well.
Oh, that's in
Negate
Ixalan though, so we're.
I mean,
good.
it's in Ixalan. I just mean like as an effect that is just going to be in a core set. Like they printed Cancel, right?
Yeah, they did print Cancel. They did. But I think it's more just along the lines of like standard health. And since they printed in Ixalan, they don't really have to worry about Negate. I think we will be seeing Negate soon and often. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that.
Sure. All right. So I think that's all I've got for Core Set 2019. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gino.
Good luck on your future tournaments, and anyone who's listening, if you want to get in touch with the show, do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, Kyle. Till the next Magic set. Peace!